and I guess when you're thinking of the idea of heaviness and intensity, I think that if you limit yourself to thinking that heaviness and intensity can be only expressed by loud, distorted guitars, then that's just a very adolescent approach to music. And I think that after you've worked with that for a long time, then you realize that that's just kind of like one emotion, and it's just kind of like scratching the surface of what actually can be intense in music. And I think that Blue Lamb and Sea Downward is actually probably our most intense album, but it's very subtly intense, and it's disguised in a way, and I think that superficial listeners may only be listening for, they make an analog between loudness, distortion, etc., and intensity, and they're really missing the kind of like overall arc of the more unusual approaches to that. Yes. I guess. Yeah.
You were talking about that most adolescent approach. I think you never had that really big adolescent approach, especially on Modeling of the Well, your first band.
Oh, okay.
Because of course your first band on the first albums, they were more guitar oriented and more metal, but I always saw that bigger picture you were trying to paint, and I think it was a big influence on the new metal bands that are out there that try to combine certain new other genres, other instruments. I think it was a very big contributor. And I have another question.
I will pull this question to make you the question I want. Do you think that your previous fans from Modeling of the Well still see Kayo as a fake twin brother of Modeling of the Well, or finally after 6 years they can notoriously distinguish one from the other?
I think that there are some people that are like what you said, but we just made it a lot more difficult when all the members of Kayo, except for Dan, just made this new Modeling of the Well record, right? The one that just came out in May.
It's amazing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, but that's mostly members of Kayo making that. I mean, and members of Modeling of the Well that aren't part of Kayo. So then it's just a little bit more confusion about what the difference is. And for a long time, when Kayo first started, I was really intent on making there be this big separation, and now like I'm not really that concerned with there actually being a separation. I don't know if there needs to be. It's something that I still ask myself about.
But sorry to interrupt. But after 6 years of Kayo and previously Modeling of the Well, do you think that you finally consolidate your Kayo and Modeling of the Well bands with the fans?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, just go and read on Last FM or something like that. People really don't, people like, the new Modeling of the Well record came out and people are like, oh, this sounds like Kayo. It's just, I don't know.
I think it has different approaches. This new album of Modeling of the Well, than you have to your first album. I think it's much less guitar oriented. I don't know how do you approach your new album. What perspective you have in mind? You had in mind to make this new album?
Yeah, I mean, it was music that was never done before because. One of the adolescent ideas of Modeling of the Well was that, a lot of time, I was really, really, really into metal at the time, and I wasn't really listening to any music that was not metal, except for some like new age and stuff like that. So, a lot of time when writing, there would be a little bit of a social concern to be like, how is this going to be taken by a metal listener? Is this metal enough? or does this idea not fit on an album because there's no metal element to it? And a lot of the songs on the new Maudlin thing are really old, but you know, there were songs of mine that were like never written from a guitar perspective. So even though they existed, it didn't really make any sense to include them in Maudlin Well, because Maudlin Well was actually striving to have an identity within metal, and I think that's, you know, that's definitely like Atlas' idea, like I said. And you know, at this point now we can be like, yeah, it doesn't matter if it fits into an identity. I mean, okay, back to the first question. It does matter if you're trying to reach a specific audience, except since we haven't really been trying to reach a specific audience, and that's our problem. We're just like, okay, let's just do all this, and we'll just do what we want to do, and then, you know, then it ends up in, you know, confusing. People are like, oh, do I like this band or do I not like this band? You know, well, I think I like metal, but
now you have a Coyote being released somewhere in the future, we hope. How can you describe your new full-length album, Coyote? Is something different from Blue Lampsing downwards? Would you like to take this?
Oh, well, I'll take a little bit of this. It's much different than Blue Lampsing downward. There's almost no guitar, which is very exciting and sort of different. And we've been throwing around the term goth fusion, half, you know, jokingly but half sincerely. It's pretty cool. And man, I don't know. You go.
Are you excited to release your second album with the label Idlehead? It's Aaron Turner.
Of course, yeah. I think that they might have some really good ideas about it.
I think that would be a really good pairing of